In business, Gulfcraft International Boat Show opens with colorful celebrations. The boat show was inaugurated on Saturday by the President of Male Municipality, Adam Manik. 24 companies from abroad and 30 local companies showcased their products in the exhibition. Unlike last year, boats and safari yachts were displayed this year at sea. The presidential yacht, Arumazo, used by the former president, was also viewed at this year's boat show. One of the latest innovations introduced to the show is a dhoni which runs on a battery charged by solar power. The Gulfcraft International Boat Show will continue until 18th of October. The media partner of this show is MNBC. The US government delays a report which was expected on Friday that could officially brand China a currency manipulator.
The U.S. Treasury releases 2 reports a year on the currency practices of its major trading partners. It has so far held back from naming China. The report is not now expected until after an upcoming G20 summit. China said the U.S. should not use the weak yuan as a scapegoat for its own economic problems. At a regular briefing, Commerce Minister spokesman Yao Jian said China would continue to reform its currency policy, but at its own pace. The last U.S. Treasury report, due in April, was eventually delayed for nearly 3 months and did not accuse China of manipulating its currency. The U.S. has not made the claim of currency manipulation since 1994, when China was named by the Bill Clinton administration. Many analysts believe China is keeping the yuan artificially low in order to help its exporters compete in global markets. Earlier this year, China promised greater flexibility in its currency approach, but since then, the yuan has only risen slightly in value. Mr. Yao said China would continue with currency reforms, but the speed of reform would be based on China's domestic economic situation. He also rejected as unreasonable fresh criticism from the Japanese Finance Minister Yoshihiko Noda. Mr. Noda has joined calls for China to do more to allow the yuan to rise and said the threat of currency wars was likely to be a significant issue at the upcoming G20 meeting. But Mr. Yao said Japan had no reason, no grounds, and was not qualified to criticize China's currency policy. Mr. Noda has said the government is ready to take further decisive steps to curb further rises in the yen after earlier intervention in the currency markets appeared to have little impact. Earlier, Japan's Prime Minister Naoto Kan also admitted he was very concerned about the currency situation. Growing criticism of China's currency policy comes as the country's Communist Party leaders meet to outline their next 5-year economic plan. The focus is likely to be on maintaining China's current rapid growth, which currently relies heavily on export. Officials will look at ways of boosting domestic demand from Chinese consumers in an effort to rebalance the economy.
The 19th Commonwealth Games ended on Thursday in New Delhi, with Australia topping the medals table with 74 golds. In the run-up to the Games, the organizers of the Games had come in for severe criticism over delayed completion of the athletes' village and other facilities. Several prominent athletes had even pulled out of the event, citing health and security concerns. However, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth says that at the end of the game, India did well to deserve praise.
Competition at one of the most troubled Commonwealth Games ended Thursday when the final 16 of 272 gold medals were presented and the closing ceremonies were scheduled at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium amid the tightest security of the 10-day Games. The athletes' village was in terrible state just a week before the Games started October 3rd, with several teams forced into hotels or delaying their arrivals because of filthy and unfinished conditions there. Media treated India with harsh criticism over the weak preparations to the Games. Speaking to mnbc-989, the Secretary General of Commonwealth, Kamalesh Sharma, said that despite the problems faced at the start of the Games, India did a successful job in delivering the Games.
Some teething troubles were there in the beginning, but India got over them very, very quickly. And everyone, the athletes and the delegations and all commentators are now agreed that it was a very, very successful Games. The venues were, state of art. The sentiment among the athletes was very enthusiastic, very positive. So whatever the earlier stories were, they dissipated very quickly.
A glitzy ceremony was held amid tight security at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium to mark the end of the Games. Mike Fennell, the Commonwealth Games Federation president, declared the Games a success, saying that despite the late completion of the athletes' village, lack of ticket sales and transport issues, the athletes enjoyed them. India is to probe into allegations of corruption and mismanagement at the Commonwealth Games in Delhi. Investigators will be looking at awarding of contracts and how the work was supervised. Former Auditor General V.K. Shungla is to look at the aspects of the event's organization and planning. The Games were initially beset by construction delays and complaints about the athletes' accommodation, but were later hailed as a success.
Club's men topped the Bundesliga for the first time in 7 years on a rainy evening in Cologne. Jakub and Lukas Podolski traded goals before Nuri Sahin's dramatic strike in injury time, which fired the visitors ahead of Mainz before the fixtures this weekend. Dortmund started the game on the front foot and nearly opened the scoring as early as the 6th minute when Lucas Barrios headed over from just outside the 6-yard box, following a cross by Jakub. 3 minutes later, Lukas Podolski reminded everybody of his class when he hit the bar with a wonderful shot from outside the penalty area. This did not prove to be a sign of things to come from the visitors, as the BVB were tightening their grip and looked likely to score soon. The win sees the top the Bundesliga, while Cologne set in the relegation zone. Borussia hosts Hoffenheim in 8 days, while FC Cologne visits Hannover's 96 a day earlier. As expected, the US has withdrawn from the race to stage the 2018 Football World Cup, instead focusing on their bid to host the 2022 finals. The US bid committee announced Friday that it would exclusively focus on the 2022 campaign. In a statement released in New York, the bid committee said they had reached their decision after several months of consultations. FIFA welcomed the announcement. FIFA Secretary General Jerome Valcke said they have had an open and constructive dialogue with the US bid for some time now, after it became apparent that there was a growing movement to stage the 2018 World Cup in Europe. Earlier, England had withdrawn their bid to host the 2022 finals, leaving Australia, Japan, South Korea, Qatar and the United States to compete for the 2022 finals. England and Russia, as well as 2 co-bids from Belgium and Netherlands and Spain and Portugal, are in the race to host the 2018 finals. The World Cup was held in Africa for the first time earlier this year, with South Africa hosting the event, while Brazil will stage the 2014 finals.